think I'm getting too old to be a One Piece fan, but then I think about the burning of the Library of Alexandria, how an entire civilization's knowledge, historical recountings, and theology was stolen, memorized, and any references to its existence burned to the ground.
And then I think about how in One Piece, the moment the Library of Ohara and all of its archaeologists are eradicated for discovering something the world government didn't want to be known.
Then I think about how the entire story is about the perpetual state of the war going on our planet that has happened not just once, but in 2 separate ages already, and that we are in the third incarnate of existence, laying in wait for the second coming of a liberation warrior and a figure of God's divine light given form in order to lead us in the war against a worldly serpent. And that made me wonder, where must have Oda gotten this idea? Because across different ancient cultures and traditions, they each have the story of some monster representing chaos residing in the sea, the Leviathan. In the end times, the sea beast is said to ascend from the waters as Satan, a dragon with 7 heads, that will bestow its power onto a beast of the earth, so that one beast may have dominion over the water, while the other wreaks havoc on the earth. And that made me think about Blackbeard, how he will most certainly become the world serpent after being bestowed with the power of the devil, Leviathan, during the end of the world, so that the world and its land may be shrouded in darkness alongside all the sea. How Blackbeard is descendant of the Davy Jones clan, who is said to reside within Davy Jones's locker at the bottom of the ocean. And that made me think about how Jesus taught in parables. When he needed to teach divine wisdom or messages in a way which his fellow humans or disciples could comprehend, he used stories, referencing a very significant and real-life value for the people to apply. But through the use of parables that were meant to explain how what some may consider to be fiction was actually all applicable to our real life, and how the aspects of humanity that would allow us to be the most virtuous can mainly be found and inspired through what some people may only consider to be fiction. And then I think about how in the book of Revelations, after all the forces that stand against God are defeated, heaven will celebrate with the wedding supper of the Lamb, and that once the old order ends and all of God's people are united once again, they will celebrate with the ability to eat as much as they like alongside Christ, the liberator. And all that made me think about Luffy and how important food is to Luffy. In fact, when standing against Kaido before defeating him, Luffy lists his goal as being to make a world where his friends can eat as much as they want, which is on its own might be coincidental, but when you pair it with the fact that Luffy is the sun god and is the current incarnate of a savior deity that is inscribed in stones that predate his existence by thousands of years, it leans into us realizing that Luffy is this liberator, this Christ-like figure that is meant to lead a holy war against the forces who oppose the Most High and liberate all of the D-Clan, God's chosen people, and the enslaved of the earth, in order to create a world where anyone ruling has the ability to eat alongside him as much as they like. And that made me think about Israel, and how Israel is a people made of 12 tribes and 12 lineages, how the chosen people of Israel are spread amongst the nations and have been attempted to be destroyed and rewritten out of history entirely, and how these people are fated to maintain covenant with the Most High, or fulfill roles in a divine play that lead to Christ the Redeemer and his chosen being liberated. And that made me think about the D-Clan and the Will of D, and how they are spread amongst the nations, have been attempted to be destroyed and rewritten out of history, and how the members of this clan are fated to be the enemies of the god of this world, Lucifer. And that made me think about Corinthians 2:4-4, where Paul describes Satan as the god of this world, not Yahuwah, but someone else, and how in One Piece they have a king that only the highest place elites in the world know exists, that sits upon the highest throne, secretly making covenants with them that rids them of their humanity and provides an unholy power in exchange for their mortal souls, and even goes as far as to claim dominance over them from the abyss, the same abyss the book of Revelations claims the devil will come from in the end times. Emu is not just the devil of the One Piece world, he's the devil in our real world. And that made me think about the Garden of Eden, where humanity lived in perfect harmonious union alongside God, till the serpent introduced itself, and the concept of deceit by providing us with divine wisdom, the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And after humanity partook in that fruit, we were cast out of paradise. And that reminded me of the entire power system behind One Piece, devil fruit, the fruit of forbidden knowledge and wisdom being passed on to humanity to further separate them from their connection with their divine creator, but not by accessing the fruit from the garden, by weaponizing the faith and divinity within people themselves. You see, One Piece has a constant message within it about censorship, the erasure of history by totalitarian forces, and the void century being wiped from history books, and the origin of the D-Clan, and the true historical recollection of its divine events. The story is constantly reflecting a message to us that is very clear. There are a select group of elite royal bloodlines in charge of this planet. They have made covenant with demons and bodiless entities in order to establish themselves as military and political powers in this world. They utilize enslavement, child sacrifice, and scientific technology to further the advancements they make in reference to preparing for this holy war. And they weaponize the spread of information in order to lead people further astray from their connection to God within, which is why Luffy is so important. Like Jesus, he is the reminder, the living light of God given manifest in form, the word of God being replicated not by a hyper-awareness, but by embodying a timeless truth, that joy and simply being joy is what brings you close to Christ, that by spreading smiles you can garnish freedom, and by having the faith and the ability to dream, you can utilize divine power to bring the dawn, by focusing your faith and your connection to the Father through a divinely guided purpose and exploration. information that you can thereby utilize in order to make not only your desires, but the world's desires a tangible reality. None of this is fiction. That is why fiction itself cannot be considered as such. And all that makes me remember Marineford, the greatest war we had seen so far in the early days of One Piece, that united all the characters who had been only legends in our mind at that time, where we get the iconic, unforgettable moment in the final words of Whitebeard.
The One Piece! The One Piece is real!
I always thought that he was talking to the pirates, to the people of this world, letting them know that the One Piece treasure they had all sought out for would not be in vain. I now know that not to be true. He wasn't talking to the pirates on the battlefield, or even the people of his world. He was speaking directly to us, telling us that the One Piece treasure was not only real, but real in our version of reality. The reason why the characters always laugh to the point of tears when they see the real treasure is because it's a unification of their world into our real world, a culmination of the apocalypse currently setting out to play in our era, the Third Age, just as depicted on the murals within the story, where the Antichrist reigns over the world, Christ the Redeemer returns, and the world is saved and made new again in his image. One Piece is the modern recounting of this legend in order to prepare us for it and explain us what is going on as it happens and actually plays out in our real space. It's not just a manga, it's a parable, a reference to all of Christ and his religious teaching in a way digestible for the modern day. And this can even be seen in the existence of Kuma, who comes from a race called the Buccaneer and has a history of avid worship of the sun god Nika. In his first introduction, he is seen carrying a Christian Bible, and when we delve into his flashbacks, we see that when he goes to the church of Nika, he prays to a cross. This is because Nika is Christ's salvation, being shown in this parable as Luffy. Luffy is meant to embody the modern day incarnation of Christ, the second coming, to show us Christ would appear as this individual in the modern day. The chosen one will be the one cast out, set aside, and rejected by the world. The way Luffy is underestimated, considered the weakest, and cast out by the people of both his world and our own explains why he is the true reflection of Christ's light, love, and essence in the One Piece world. In the real world, the chosen people of God are cast aside. We are not worshipped or revered as gods. We are considered social outcasts, rejects, or bums. During the days Jesus walked the earth, he was not revered as the Son of Man. He was ridiculed, threatened, and treated as though he was ludicrous for believing himself to be what he truly was, the perfect Son of God. He was not executed by people who were considered socially deplorable or criminal. Jesus had his life taken by religious leaders who were accepted as the gods chosen by the people. In the real world, the truth doesn't matter when it comes to who is chosen. Whoever is in control of the narrative is in control of who God's people are. History is not just buried, but rewritten and then woven into an amalgamation of ideas that are now inhabited by those who have no covenant with the Most High, and thus are not qualified to claim and profess who is or isn't his people. And just like within the story of One Piece, we live in a world propagandized for us to be conditioned to not even care about the history that gets erased, where we classify God's chosen as the criminals and outlaws in the society, not because this world is just, but because there is another God of this world. That is not the Most High. And that is the importance of understanding how these shows and entertainment that exist are in fact parables. Because if you can see that there's a connection between the struggles you face in your reality with the struggles of someone on a screen, then you can understand that art imitating life means there are forces beyond either of them at play that allow them to exist in unison. And the same story, message, and narrative is being repeated across lineages thousands of times throughout all of human history. Even if you are someone who would consider yourself logical or a skeptic, I feel that as logic practitioners, we have to realize that a pattern usually has a common denominator, especially when that pattern extends beyond the barriers and limitations brought up by cultures that exist several continents and centuries apart. The stories exist for a reason. They're so repetitive because history is repeating itself. We are in the Third Age, and we still have time. The ability to make covenant with the one who created you is something we all have access to each day. It's as simple as being able to call upon his name. The reason I feel so adamantly about this now is because of the fact that I spent so much time coasting through life without calling God's true name, and even while blaspheming and claiming not to acknowledge his existence. And yet, in spite of all that, his love and grace towards me is never ending. That is what Luffy represents. No matter the amount of hatred you gave, the level of betrayal from his disciples, nor the amount of opposition from a world that doesn't want him to exist, he loves you anyway and wants us all to achieve genuine freedom. So I think that I'm just old enough to keep watching anime. There's something to that feels divine.